folks, we're on day 8 now, and today's prompt is Medusa, one that I was very excited about and actually spent quite a long time planning for ahead of time, because I knew that this one was one that people would engage with because they know the story, and also because it's a great opportunity. A woman with snakes for hair, that, illustrator's dream. Anyway, I just want to say before I get into this that I do tell the story of Medusa in this, so there's a trigger warning for sexual assault. If you don't want to hear that, then you could mute the video. If you want, you still get to see the whole process of it. And I tried out some different techniques in this as well, which was fun to do, and I think they really paid off. So without further ado, here is Medusa. Of course, the trouble with working ahead of time is that I don't get the feedback from people as quickly, and I'm not able to apply that to what I'm doing. So I don't have anybody's answers yet on what I should talk about in these videos, because I literally just recorded the previous one that went up yesterday. But anyway, with today's one, I think it is appropriate to talk about the technique I'm using, because it's a little bit different, and it sort of worked and sort of didn't, but I managed to fix it. So there's a little bit of a story involved there. And speaking of stories, the story of Medusa is quite an incredible one, and I think we tend to only remember the last bit of it, which is Perseus, the quote-unquote hero, coming in and beheading her. But her story starts a lot longer before that, a whole lot of time before that, earlier than that even, and it's heartbreaking. So Medusa wasn't always a Gorgon. She wasn't always this hideous, feared creature. She was actually, in fact, as many people end up being in Greek mythology, a beautiful young woman. People started coming to the temple because of Medusa and her beauty, rather than for Athena, whose temple it was. So that didn't make Athena very happy. And she also caught the eye of Poseidon, who tried to convince her to be his mistress. And of course, Medusa, being the good, chaste woman and priestess that she was, said no. But Poseidon, being Poseidon, decided that wasn't good enough, and he pursued her. She ran into the temple of Athena, where he raped her, and guess who got the blame for this? Is it any surprise? Honestly, Greek mythology is the worst. Instead of Poseidon getting the blame for this, Athena, another woman, really not about the sisterhood here, decided to punish Medusa rather than Poseidon, because Poseidon is kind of above her in the hierarchy of things. And poor Medusa gets turned into a Gorgon, so her hair is turned into snakes, and she is feared by everyone because merely looking at her will turn you to stone. And then later on, the more well-known part of the story is the story of Perseus, who comes along and slays the beast Medusa, and is a hero. So I think this is one of the most tragic stories in Greek mythology, and I think it's pretty emblematic of the way we think. That the bit that actually gets discussed is the later bit about Perseus, and that he is considered a hero. But anyway, I could spend a lot of time talking about that probably. But what I want to talk about now is what I am actually doing, because this probably looks really weird. So I wanted to create this halo effect, which I've done by cutting out a circle, a sort of reverse circle in a piece of paper, and I've stuck that down to the page to mask out that space. And now what I'm doing here is I'm using what's called a masking fluid, which is usually used in watercolors, but you can use it with inks as well. And I am creating a kind of snake skin effect. I realized later on that I actually used a little bit too much of this fluid, but yeah, I'm using it with the pen again, the dip pen, which works surprisingly well. You get quite a lot of precision with it, which I really liked. This just took a really long time. My camera kept cutting out as well. I've had this problem a few times where I'm filming on my iPhone and it overheats and decides it won't do anything. So I have to put it outside on the cool tiles and let it cool off a bit. And so there are a few bits of this missing. I think I got all of this masking bit anyway. So yeah, this was fairly monotonous. It took ages. It took a really long time. But it was okay because I was listening to a good audiobook. I've just finished up a reread of The Raven Cycle, which I have reread for the second time this year. It's one of those series that just really stuck with me. I wasn't totally enamored with it the first time I read it, but after that I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I had to go back and read it again, and I enjoyed it so much more the second time. And since then, that was last year, I've read it again, and then I've just finished another reread. So I've now read it 4 times, and I just love that world. I'm very excited for the next one, the start of a new series featuring some of the same characters from Maggie's Stiefvater. So very excited about that, and I highly recommend those books. What I'm doing here is just getting rid of 1 or 2 of those blobs that were a bit too heavy, and now waited for it to dry a little bit, and I'm going over this with gold, which is kind of weird because of course this masking stuff repels it, so you don't need to actually use all that much. It was quite interesting to do, and my hands kept sticking to the masking fluid, which is kind of, it's like one of those like the bottom of a rug or something, like a sticky almost plasticky rubbery feel that, you know, it's got that tackiness to it. So it's a little bit weird. And yeah, then here I'm using that circle again to mask it out. It did bleed under in a couple of places, but I was able to sort that out. Yeah, this was an interesting process because I wasn't really quite sure how it was going to turn out. I had hoped that it would be really good, but it's always a bit of a risk, and I guess that's just the way of it, especially when you're working traditionally. You've just got to commit and hope that it works. And I was checking that it dried, and yeah, so here I am going through and rubbing out all of those bits, and you just rub them off with a finger. And I did find that the masking fluid also took off some of the ink underneath, some of the black ink. So I had to go back through in a few places and just fill those bits in with black. But that seemed to work okay. Obviously the surface isn't quite as smooth now, but yeah, that's all right. Oh, that was Lyra very quickly stuck her nose in there. Yeah, so then I'm just checking how the gold will look over the top of this green, because I was going to do all her facial features in this gold, and this is where my camera cut out, so sorry you didn't get to see the process of the face going in. But I decided that actually I wanted to do them in black just to give it a bit more definition. I'm really glad I did because I'm super happy with how her face turned out. I think it looks great. Maybe it's just because it's green, but yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. So yeah, here I'm going around the outsides, just outlining all of the snakes. I didn't want to put any more detail into the snakes themselves because you had all that detail in the halo, and that seemed like enough, having that sort of snake skin effect around the outside. So I was pretty pleased with that. And then I'm just going in and darkening those bits that were a bit lighter and making all that black just that little bit smoother. I don't know how much difference that really made, but I don't like to have the black too blotchy. So for the sake of my own happiness, I went back in with the Pentel brush pen, which just gave a bit more depth to that black. And I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. So peeling off these bits. You may have noticed this one's a bit bigger than the other ones. I just wanted to have a bit more white space, although it's black, more space around the outside, and I'm glad I did. I think it would have felt a bit claustrophobic if I had had it on a smaller piece of paper, and it just allowed the design to breathe a little bit, if that makes any sense. So yeah, that's Medusa. I'm so pleased with how this turned out. Like I said, it was a bit of a risk, and it's always nice when those risks pay off. And my phone is playing up again, so I'll have to sign off via voice. Apologies if you were looking forward to seeing my face again, but you'll just have to wait until tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, as always, and if you have any ideas on what you would like me to talk about in a future video, I'm doing one of these for every day of the month of October, so I'll need more topics. Let me know down in the comments, and I will see you tomorrow.